Attention, State Farm.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
All right, dude. Yeah, let's get out of here.
Residents flee for their lives.
Governor, I live here, Governor. That was my daughter's school, Governor. Please tell me what you're going to do. I'm not going to hurt him, I promise.
I'm literally talking to the president right now to specifically answer the question of what we can do for you and your daughter.
Can I hear it? Can I hear your call? Because I don't believe...
California is burning. Insurance companies are fleeing, and billions of gallons of water are being sent to the ocean. Even President Trump issued warnings about this disaster. But were they ignored? Let's deep dive into the decision that led to this crisis. Let's go.
America's biggest podcaster Joe Rogan slammed Californian Governor Gavin Newsom for his bizarre body language in the midst of the Los Angeles wildfire crisis. The governor of California was seen smirking and rocking his shoulders from side to side throughout the television interview, leading to questions about what could be causing the body movements.
We're dealing with a myriad of issues. I was just talking to Josh Green, the governor of down in Hawaii, who had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in, buying up properties, and the like. So we're already working with our legal teams to move those things forward, and we'll be presenting those in a matter of days, not just weeks.
Joe Rogan picked up on the strange behavior.
To the ground. And this guy's like standing in front of all this stuff, and he's got a smile on his face, and he's talking about land use.
The development plans.
Watch this. Play this.
I was just talking to Josh Green, the governor of down in Hawaii, who had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in, buying up properties, and the like. So we're already working with our legal teams to move those things forward, and we'll be presenting those in a matter of days, not just weeks.
With a big smile on his face. Look at the little wiggle he does with his shoulders. Speculator, watch this. Talking to Josh. Look at this. Look at this little wiggle. It's excited about the possibilities of speculators coming in. And he's saying we're move forward. We're going to move forward on that. These people lost their homes.
And comedian Jimmy Dore doubled down, saying, any body language experts know why he's rolling his shoulders after laughing like an idiot after saying he was talking to the governor of Hawaii? And other commentators called his body movements a dance shuffle. This person said, Gavin Newsom does a celebratory dance shuffle while simultaneously smiling at the prospect of external investors buying up land which is still smoking in LA. He even took advice from the one governor of Hawaii where this has already happened. And this commentator blasted his sunny disposition in a time of crisis. How does he laugh and smile, having a jolly good time with all that destruction around him? Is he showing the emotion glee? I can only describe this as gleeful. And this isn't the first time Newsom has smiled his way through an interview during the fires. He grinned while slamming Donald Trump's response to the situation.
A state with millions and millions of Trump supporters, Speaker Johnson, and Mr. President-elect, millions of your supporters are out here. They need your help, they need your empathy, they need your care, whatever compassion you can express, as opposed to condemnation and divisive language that has aided and embedded nothing except mis and disinformation that's flamed fear and flamed a lot of anxiety for folks that are simply trying to recover and at the same time our first responders trying to address the emergency at hand, which still hasn't been fully buttoned up.
Podcaster Laura Loomer also ridiculed Newsom's response.
Back in 2018-2019, President Donald Trump repeatedly called out Governor Gavin Newsom for failing to manage the state forest properly. Trump warned about the buildup of dry brush. These statements was first met with criticism, but Trump wasn't alone. Fire experts, insurance companies have been saying the same thing for years.
What's happening should never happen. I go all over the country and I meet with governors. The first thing they say is there's no reason for forest fires like that in California. So I say to the governor, or whoever's going to be the governor of California, you better get your act together, because California, we're just not going to continue to pay the kind of money that we're paying because of fires that should never be to the extent. They were telling me in a couple of states, I won't even mention their name, it's like a flash. Some grass will burn, it'll be over in minutes. They'll lose 2 acres, 3 acres. At the most, they won't even lose that. And here we are with thousands of acres and billions of dollars every year. It's the same thing every year. And they don't want to clean up their forests because they have environmental problems in cleaning it up. It should be the opposite, because you're going to lose your forests. You're losing them. But it's costing our country hundreds of billions of dollars because of incompetence in California. So the people, I'm speaking now for the people of California, they don't want to see this happen. They're getting destroyed. And it's hurting our budgets, it's hurting our country, and they just better get their act together.
The action lagged behind the warnings. They had no intent of fixing this problem. They had no intent of preventing these fires.
Palisades fire has grown to more than 21,000 acres. It is only 8% contained as firefighters continue to battle dry conditions.
With more than 5,000 homes and structures lost, it is the 4th most destructive wildfire in California history. Meanwhile, we're following reports of looting in the area. We're also learning why a nearby reservoir, a crucial resource, could not be used in the firefight. So let's go live to Eyewitness News reporter Josh Haskell, live in Pacific Palisades. Josh?
Yeah, David and Colleen, it has been a desperate scene here all day. We are at the final checkpoint to get into Pacific Palisades. Take a look. Residents are trying to get in, but you need a police escort. They are being turned away. Most are. But first, I do want to play a video that I received earlier from a friend that was recorded on his home Ring camera. His family is evacuated, but it was a surprise recording from a firefighter who's in place in his driveway for structure protection.
Hello, I don't know if you can see this, but we're the City of Orange Fire Department. We're assigned for protection, what we call tactical patrol of your neighborhood. So we'll be roaming around probably the whole next 24 hours, make sure nothing flares up, so we can protect your property.
Now take a look at this line of cars on Sunset Boulevard at one of the 3 checkpoints. Now, residents have been lining up to see if they still have a home and retrieve their belongings. The Palisades fire is the 4th most destructive fire in California history. The devastation catastrophic, as it really feels that over 50% of the town of Pacific Palisades is gone. The fire is currently at 8% containment. Now, it's burned over 21,000 acres. 5,316 structures have been destroyed, and over 3,000 firefighters are assigned. Air support has helped a great deal, but as we've been reporting, one of the 2 LA County super scoopers assigned to the Palisades fire was hit by a drone and has been taken out of service until Monday. The current red flag warning ends tonight, and another one will start Monday. Here's what Mayor Bass said today, and also we interviewed a resident of Pacific Palisades whose home was looted.
I want the residents of Los Angeles region to have faith in what we are doing 24 hours a day. I can say on behalf of our first responders from the fire department, the police department, we are doing everything we can to bring the situation under control, and success has been reported.
We saw about 3 guys go in. They were wearing what you'd see like people wear during COVID, just like a hoodie and the normal mask, and essentially they just went in and they took a lot of things. They didn't take any photos, like sentimental things. Those are still there, but we did have a good amount of cash in there. We had watches, most importantly clothes, a lot of nice clothes, designer things.
Now, Aiden and his family are under a mandatory evacuation, and although firefighters saved their home, they now have to deal with looting. Now, they told me they feel betrayed by the city. Also, the Santa Ynez Reservoir, which holds 117 million gallons of water, is currently closed because of repairs to its cover, and it could not be used during the Palisades fire. Although it is located in the middle of the Palisades, in the Palisades Highlands, and some believe it would have really helped. Governor Newsom has ordered a probe as to why that reservoir was offline. Now, there is no word yet how those looters have been getting into Pacific Palisades, because there really are checkpoints at every entrance and exit. That is part of the reason why the National Guard has been called in and is on their way here. We haven't seen them here yet, but we expect them to be in the Palisades shortly.
While wildfires were ravaging the state, there was a much bigger problem. It was a water problem. It was a water management problem. California chose to prioritize endangered fish like the Chinook salmon.
This is how you save the salmon populations, bro. Stop making them do the fish ladders in the hatcheries. Let the homies breed in the wild. This is how you save an endangered species. You provide habitat. Oh, they're building the nest right there. Salmon populations are crashing all over California, and the #1 reason is dams. We have over 1,000 dams in California, and they have dammed up rivers that these fish need to spawn. This is not natural, and this is why they are going extinct. Look, they reach the top of the fish ladder where they're going to get killed, and then humans will artificially spawn the eggs. But their instincts are telling them to keep running, keep doing the salmon run, so they're trying to hop over into the other tanks where the fish are also going to get killed and artificially spawn. This is not the answer, bro. This is not how you save salmon. If you want to save salmon, you got to provide habitat. California has completely failed our native fish, and it is time to rethink our solutions. Hatcheries are not the answer. We need to provide habitat and let these fish spawn in the wild. Save Chinook salmon and fuck PG&E.
Newsom says that he has a new plan that will protect threatened fish species that he says are critical for the ecosystem across a good portion of California. Thanks for joining us for Fox 40 News at 5:30. I'm Eric Harriman.
And I'm Nikki Lorenzo. Fox 40 Capitol reporter Eitan Wallace explains what the governor is hoping to do and what he says will happen if action is not taken soon.
The roaring sound of rapids coupled with the sight of rushing water. You're looking at the Daguerre Point Dam along the Yuba River in rural Yuba County, north of Sacramento.
In the future, what do you mean by it?
Today, Governor Gavin Newsom toured a portion of the dam as he unveiled a plan to restore this part of the Yuba River, all in an effort to save threatened fish species, including the Chinook salmon, the steelhead, the green and white sturgeon, and the Pacific lamprey, all creatures who rely on this waterway for their habitat and eventual repopulation. Here's the background on the fish species in question. The adults spawn way upriver in the cold Sierra Nevada, away from predators. Their babies then come all the way downriver to the ocean where they live for a few years before they themselves come back upriver to spawn. Only problem, according to state leaders, that dam gets in the way.
This is important. This is about preserving a species for generations.
The fish, per the governor, are integral parts of the ecosystem here, but he also makes clear the 117-year-old dam has done its job of blocking sediment and enhancing flood protection for nearby areas. That's why instead of destroying the dam, he's backing a plan he believes most Californians will get behind, the construction of this new $60 million on-ramp looking waterway that will allow fish to sidestep the dam and easily swim up and downstream without getting stuck in the dam.
We're moving. There's real progress. And there's progress in an area that frankly gets under-resourced.
The project, he says, is one of more than 24 like it across the state. Why his team says it matters?
If salmon are healthy, it means our rivers are healthy. And when salmon suffer, it's an indication that our rivers are suffering.
And that, according to state leaders, will eventually impact the environment, including human beings. As for now, though, while California faces a shortfall of about $32 billion Governor Newsom acknowledges could lead to cuts, he says when it comes to this project, the state is fully invested.
Despite a modest deficit, we're holding the line on these projects, and we're moving them forward. And these are tangible. You can see the fruits of your tax dollars. So as a taxpayer, I like things like this, before and after, as long as we deliver on time and on budget and hold ourselves to a higher level of accountability.
And this project certainly will not just happen overnight. Officials still need to go through what could be a lengthy process to obtain building permits, and after that it could take a few years for construction to complete. Reporting in Yuba County, covering local news that matters, Eitan Wallace, Fox 40 News.
And want to point out that we did reach out to state GOP lawmakers for reaction, but they did not have a comment. A new historic...
Critics, including President Trump, slammed the decision, arguing that the water should be conserved for firefighting and agriculture and human consumption.
Jeff, it's great to have you on. Welcome.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
We want to talk to you about water today. You're a water expert. You've been involved with water in California. And there is a letter from water agencies across California that's asking California government to actually reconsider how much water they're releasing to the ocean, if I'm correct on this. Before we get into this, I want to understand if you can give us a background on what's going on with water in California.
The California we know today is really only possible because we move water around. The southern part of the state where a lot of the population is, in the Central Valley where there's a lot of agriculture, really wouldn't be able to sustain either the population or the agriculture without major water systems and projects being built, many of them in the early 20th century and some even before that. In terms of enough local water, we have the Los Angeles River, we have the San Gabriel River in Southern California, we have the Santa Ana River. Those are the kind of the three main rivers that drain the Southern California plain. When they have water in nature is in the winter. That water falls on the mountains of Southern California and heads straight out to the ocean. And so fast and in such volumes, we have a difficult time controlling it. So there are some groundwater basins in Southern California, but there's really only enough native water in Southern California to support maybe 5 to 10% of the population that exists there. And San Diego really, doesn't have much groundwater at all because it's sitting on much more of a rock geology, and there's really not much groundwater in San Diego. So San Diego wouldn't be possible in any significant. So if you think of Southern California being San Diego, Orange County, Los Angeles, absent San Bernardino, absent the importation of water from hundreds of miles away, Southern California wouldn't be possible. Same thing in the San Joaquin Valley. In the San Joaquin Valley, there's about 5 million acres of irrigated agriculture. It's really hard to fathom. You have mile after mile after mile of agriculture, about 250 different crops that are grown in the Central Valley. It is absolutely a marvel. But it wouldn't be possible if we didn't have these water systems. Now, in the agriculture context, it's a combination of water projects, surface water that comes actually off of the Sierras, which are right there to the east of the San Joaquin Valley, and some of this Northern California water that comes in, and some of the San Joaquin River, and then some groundwater. And it's a vast groundwater basin, but it's been pumped heavily. And so we're in the process of having to balance out that pumping and reduce pumping so that we're sustainable. We've actually mined a lot of water out of the San Joaquin Valley. But all of this is context for this Delta region because as I described this, the Delta is really kind of the valve through which the two major surface water projects that both sustain the Central Valley agriculture and Southern California, Central California, and the coast. This water has to physically move between Northern California and then the central and southern part of the state. And it passes through the Delta. And the Delta is about 700,000 more or less acres, so it's a very large geographical region. Originally, it was marshland and all the things that you can imagine a delta would be. And as people came to California, they basically began to berm this area up and dry out these drier, kind of move the water in the delta into channelize it. It's a complex area, and it's a mixing zone between fresh and salt water. Really, the only thing that keeps the salt water from inundating the delta, much of which is below sea level, is freshwater outflow from these rivers. So you have to keep fresh water moving out all the time to keep the salt water from coming back. And so that's really where we get to this letter, because California built these systems and was operating them. And there was a big change in policy in California in the early 1990s. Some of it was deliberate. There was a reauthorization necessary for the federal portion of this surface water system, the Central Valley Project. And there was a bill passed in the Congress that was signed by the president that actually reallocated some of the yield of that system to the environment, about 10% of the yield of that. About 1 million acre feet out of about.
Is it out of the fresh water?
Yes, and there was a policy decision to dedicate some of that water to the environment. But at the same time, there are also 2 species of fish that were listed as endangered. There was a delta smelt that was listed as endangered, and there was the winter run Chinook salmon, which obviously lives, part of its life in the ocean, and part of its life it comes up to spawn, and so it goes through this delta area. And when it spawns, it needs very cold water in order to be successful in its spawning. And so the point is that the delta area is got ecological value and benefit.
Without these water projects, can you tell us more?
There's a quote from a guy named, an author actually, named Hinton Helper, who was from North Carolina. In 1855, Hinton Helper came out to California. We had just become a state. In 1850, California became a state. Had the gold rush going on, 1849. And there was all this hype in the rest of the country about California, this land of gold. So he came out and he spent a couple of years traveling the state, going to every little community and actually counting how many buildings and what the economic value was and what the economic potential was of this new state in the Union. And he wrote articles, and when he got back to North Carolina, he compiled these articles into a book called California Gold, Fact or Fiction. And in his book, he says, balancing resource against defect and comparing territory with territory, California is the poorest state in the Union. Other than some interesting metal, her valleys will grow sufficient breadstuffs to support sparse populations. Now that is what California looked like to him in 1855. And obviously it is dramatically different from the California that we experience today. And what made the difference? What made the California we see today grow out of the California he saw 175 years ago? And there's one thing that made that happen, besides phenomenal people, but it was moving water around. Moving water from areas of abundance to areas of need and literally causing the desert to bloom. So that system formed the foundation of building the state of California. And without it, and this is something we don't pay a lot of attention to, but if we don't take care of it, it has an impact on who we are and what we are. And so water and its manipulation is critical to making California what it is and to keeping it sustainable for the long term.
So moving water from Northern California to Southern California.
Yeah, 2/3 or more of the water falls in the northern 40% of the state. But the population and a huge amount of agriculture is in the southern part of the state. So there's a mismatch between the water where it falls and where the demands are to sustain what we built here. So there needs to be a infrastructure to move that water around, and there is. I mean, Southern California has basically 3 straws that it draws water from. There's the Los Angeles Aqueduct from the Eastern Sierra. There's the Colorado River Aqueduct from the Colorado River, and then there's the State Water Project, which comes from Northern California. And all 3 of them have problems. All 3 of them have challenges. And so we're trying to, do our best to manage our way through that, and we will. We will. But yeah, California wouldn't exist today as we know it, anything close to it, if it were not for, frankly, the vision and the risk taking. I mean, when the city of Los Angeles built the Los Angeles Aqueduct, the amount of money they were committing to was a huge percentage of what the value of the tax value of Los Angeles at that time was. The population of Los Angeles was very small in 1905 relative to what they were committing to.
So they were taking risk investing in this water project.
And the same thing on the Colorado River Aqueduct. They spent, I won't give numbers because I'll get them wrong, but a huge percentage of the taxable wealth. And they taxed themselves to build these projects. Both the Los Angeles Aqueduct and the Colorado River Aqueduct were built exclusively with the money that was generated from Southern California. There was not federal and state money that came in to build those projects. And the State Water Project was financed by the state, but is being repaid by the water users. It wasn't like these were grants that built these things.
It's 170 years ago. The person that came here to discover California, to actually analyze California, thought that this state is not possible. But the state did it with the water projects. Do you think in the future, the way we're treating water, it's gonna stop our development?
Well, we do need to do major investments. There's no question about that. One of the things about California that is unique is the people that come here. I mean, that's really what makes California California, is the people. And they're very innovative and they're very adaptable. So we have real challenges, and we're going to have to invest a lot of money to make this system sustainable over time. But the point is that there were people before us who made investments that made it possible for us to be here. Those types of visionaries did that, And, as we developed the different facets, there were some interesting people. William Mulholland was the person who was behind the Los Angeles Aqueduct and also an engineer that designed the Colorado River Aqueduct. He was an Irish immigrant, really not formally trained as an engineer, but just a really brilliant
So he
man.
designed the whole aqueduct.
Yeah, that was his brainchild, and actually,
And it doesn't use any electricity, right?
the Los Angeles Aqueduct, that water flows by gravity all the way from down 395. You ever go up 395 up to Mammoth? It's really remarkable to think about the fact that he saw that riding on horseback. There really weren't roads up to Bishop in those days. I mean, they were, they built that system with horses and various. There's fascinating pictures of big sections of pipe that were placed, and then they had a tunnel through mountains without modern equipment, and they started on both sides and they met each other in the middle. You're talking in 1905, wow. 1903, 1904. So just incredible ingenuity and vision. We have a different environment today.
And the city of Los Angeles paid for all of it.
The city of Los Angeles needed to expand because part of the permit that enabled them to take the water from the Eastern Sierra was that it had to go to the city of Los Angeles, and the town itself wasn't large enough to justify as much water as they were securing. So that's when the San Fernando Valley was incorporated into the city of Los Angeles. And then, of course, they had to build the canal, the pipeline and canal, a combination of both. And so they had more water than what the existing city could use. And so the San Fernando Valley was able to become farmed. And and for 40 years, actually, the county of Los Angeles was the largest, by way of income, agriculture county in the United States.
Wow.
The county of Los Angeles, because they were doing very high value citrus, particularly in the San Fernando Valley. And then as the town grew, that citrus converted over to urbanization, and there's not a whole lot of citrus left there. But that same story was repeated in multiple communities. Rancho Cucamonga used to be full of vineyards, and Upland in the Inland Empire was citrus, and San Bernardino had a lot of farming. So there was a lot of farming that eventually was urbanized. But these were folks that came out here to make a better life for themselves, and they realized they needed to marshal the water resources that existed, to hold them and to utilize them. And that was, and I hope it still is, that human flourishing is a value that we have as a society. Yes, we want to take care of the environment. I don't see those in conflict. In order for the environment to do well, our economy and our humans need to do well as well. And that's when we have the resources where we can do a good job of balancing all of these various.
So we're trying to get water for agriculture, we're trying to get water for the cities down in Southern California, and at the same time we're going to supply the environment, right. those
That's
species.
Right. We have to be respectful and we have to protect the environment. But the one thing about the Endangered Species Act is it's a very powerful law. And when a species gets listed as endangered, really the law is pretty clear. There's nothing you're allowed to do to hurt that species. And economic considerations really aren't to be taken into account, which is a pretty remarkable law. There's a variety of ways to comply with the law, but typically what happens when a species is listed endangered, and it happened with the Delta smelt and the winter run Chinook salmon, is that there's a biological opinion that, they get the fish experts in there and they try to say, okay, what steps can we take to preserve this species? And they come up with rules and, actual operating rules, to govern the operation of the pumps. And there's other things that are going on too that are hurting the species or could help the species, like better habitats and this sort of thing. So there's a variety of ways. But the most impactful to the water users is restrictions that they put on pumping. So one of the restrictions that was put in this operating plan for the Delta smelt was that in particular types of water years, every year is classified by how much precipitation we have in the state, and particularly in the water-bearing parts of the state. And that ranges from wet to dry to very dry.
Depending on how much rain we have in these areas.
That's right. That's right. So there's different, and each year gets a classification, and it fits into this. And one of the rules for the Delta smelt was in wet or above normal classification years, there's a requirement to, and now here's where the X2 comes from. X2 is jargon that, it's regulatory jargon that refers to where the fresh water, where the line is, where the fresh water and the salt water meet. And the measuring point is the Golden Gate Bridge, okay? So
is that on the regular basis? It should meet the
yes,
Golden
oh
Bridge.
yeah. So this line moves as you would imagine. So think about California before there were dams, right? There wasn't any control of these rivers. So in wet years, this water would
just
come.
Water is coming, and then when it's dry.
Really dry years, this salt line would come up, and there's reports of it coming almost as high as Sacramento in history, in really, really dry years. So this line moves, but this regulation required that this fall X2 is that in the fall, September and October, of above normal and wet years, this line needs to be closer to the Golden Gate Bridge. Okay, so these regulations have been in place more or less for 20 plus years, and they've had a big impact on water users. And
because essentially to keep that line, you have to release a lot of water from the dams and the reservoirs to push.
Exactly.
So essentially, you have to put the water into the ocean instead of giving it to the ag and to the consumer.
Using it for any other purpose, right? Because you got to move this salt line. So there's been a lot of scientific work because these are very important issues in terms of, and they're very costly issues. The science has been encouraged by these various regulatory agencies. And recently, within the last year, there has been science that has questioned very substantively and with a lot of credibility, questioned the value of this particular regulation, this requirement that in wet and above normal years that you should necessarily move this.
So release enough water so the line has to be at the Golden Gate Bridge? Is that or closer?
It's a measurement. The measurement is from the Golden Gate Bridge. It isn't at the Golden Gate Bridge. It's how many miles away from the Golden Gate Bridge.
Based on how much rain we had, right? Is that
based on the type of water year that you have. Okay, so this is an above normal year. It's barely an above normal year, 2024, but it is classified as an above normal year that triggered this particular regulation. There is the ability to do adaptive management if there's agreement by the agencies that have responsibility for managing the Delta smelt and these biological opinions. These are legally enforceable rules, but there is built in there some flexibility that if they get new science or if they have a justification, they can modify these rules. So 2024. Fall X2 is triggered because we're a above normal year, and so the schedule is to release this fresh water to push this freshwater line out closer to the bay.
How much fresh water is that?
The calculation is it's about 350,000 acre feet, okay? And the science that has emerged, particularly in the last year, has said this does the smelt virtually no benefit, okay? It's just not the right time. They're not there. There's not a value or not much value to fall X2. Okay, so
releasing this water to push this line back.
So the water agencies that have responsibility of delivering water, the state water contractors that, there's 20 plus agencies that receive, including Southern California and the Central Coast, that receive water from the state water contract. The Friant, which is the San Joaquin water that goes down to Bakersfield, that's the Friant Water Users Association, that's a water authority. It's in charge of that. The Delta Mendota Water Authority is in charge of the federal part of the water that comes out of the Delta. And then Westlands Water District, which is a very large district that receives water. They wrote a letter to the Bureau of Reclamation and the Department of Water Resources and asked them to use their adaptive authorities to reduce or eliminate this fall X2 requirement and therefore save this 350,000 acre feet.
So is this 350,000 acre feet going to stay? If it's not released, would it stay in the reservoirs or would they get distributed to farmers?
Well, it'd probably be a combination. If there was room to hold it in the reservoir, you know, most of these reservoirs have flood control responsibilities. If you get a really wet year, you have to have room in these reservoirs to take these floods. So some would probably stay in the reservoir. Some would be pumped and sent down at this time of year pretty much for groundwater recharge, and so that we can store it or store it in surface water reservoirs that we have. And so, yeah, there would be a place, but the point is that it wouldn't go to the ocean. Once it goes to the ocean, we can't use it. Okay, so that was the request. Followed on to that, you know, a day or two later, the San Joaquin Valley Water Blueprint, which I'm part of, sent a letter, and that was co-signed by the Southern California Water Coalition. So the Southern California Water Coalition is a broad-based water group that involves cities, counties, agriculture, business, labor, and it's been around over 40 years. I mean, it's a water advocacy group for Southern California, and the San Joaquin Valley Water Blueprint is a similar group for the San Joaquin Valley. It's much younger. It's only been around about 4 years, but it represents the broader community of stakeholders that actually uses this water. So we sent a letter. We sent it to Governor Newsom and to Secretary of Interior, believing that, you know, Governor Newsom is a representative of the people. He works for all of us. He represents all of us. And these agencies that have this authority are under the jurisdiction of the Department of Interior and the governor. And I know there's been a lot of, other folks as they've become aware of this who've weighed in and encouraged the state agencies and the federal agencies who have this adaptive authority to exercise that authority and try to save this 350,000 acre feet, since, you know, it's very likely that we got a dry year or 2 or 3 right around the corner. And having this water in storage or in the ground is pretty important for us. I mean, the way California is going to work in the future is, you know, we have to take care of the environment, but if we have to maximize the amount of water that we store in these wet years so that we have it in the dry years.
Now, how much is 350,000 acres for some of us?
Yeah.
You know, not water people.
Yeah, acre feet. Well, an acre foot is 326,000 gallons. Okay, so that's 1 acre feet. 1 acre foot is 326,000 gallons. The city of San Diego uses 175,000 acre feet a year.
Wow.
Okay.
So 2 years for just the
350,000 acre feet is 2 years worth of the city of San Diego's water consumption. So it's not an insignificant amount of water.
And you mentioned that this can be charging the ground,
right?
The groundwater.
Yeah.
And we don't have storage in California. We've heard from some water experts that we haven't been able to build water storage. Can you tell us more about this ground storage?
You know, I think that
is that true?
I think that's not true. We built a lot of storage. There's probably, you know, more storage, above ground storage that we could build, but I think it is important, and not stepping on anybody's toes, but the reality is that we went through a period in the United States where we sent engineers to look at every good spot that you could put a dam. North America had been thoroughly explored in terms of opportunities, and we built thousands of dams, thousands of them. And we built pretty much anything we could find somebody to pay for, you know, and because in order to build a reservoir, you know, there needs to be an economic benefit from that, and that economic benefit has to pay for the very significant cost of building that reservoir. We built most of the easy ones, or the good ones, the ones that penciled out, and what we got left are things that got passed over in history. For one reason or another, they got passed over. And so going back now, there aren't a lot of great sites to do further above ground storage. There's a few. The Sites Reservoir, which we probably heard about, it's a dry canyon. It wouldn't dam up a river, and it's very, very expensive. But it's one that, you know, has quite a bit of support. Raising Shasta Dam probably makes the most sense. If we raised it another 18 or 20 feet, and it would be very good for the salmon, because the salmon need that cold water that comes from the bottom of Lake Shasta. The salmon, when they spawn, need 55-degree water. If it's 57, they die. So it's having that water, that cold water. So that one makes sense. There may be a few others that do, but for the most part, where our storage opportunities are in underground storage. The San Joaquin Valley has, we've been pumping a lot of water. What has left is space to percolate more water in the ground. And we could store tens of millions of acre feet of water in the San Joaquin Valley. And one of the things that's changed, I spoke to you about the groundwater that agriculture uses. And up until 2014, there was no regulation of groundwater pumping.
So anybody could pump as much
You
as
could
they
put
want.
a well in and start pumping. People who developed farming and used just groundwater, they did nothing illegal, unethical. They added tremendous value to that ground by growing crops, developing jobs, developing tax base. But we have taken more water out of the ground than what gets recharged. Now, I would be remiss not to say that the policy decisions that took place in the early 1990s, the net effect of the Endangered Species Act operating plans and the Central Valley Project Improvement Act, in round figures, it's a couple million acre feet of water a year that used to come into Central and Southern California that now doesn't because of these regulations. Since there was nothing illegal, unethical, or wrong about replacing that water from the ground.
So we've been pumping the water.
We've been pumping. So now the law was passed in 2014 called the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, and it's a long-term law. It anticipates it will take 20 to 25 years to bring this into sustainability. But the bottom line is that we're going to have to reduce groundwater pumping to a point where we don't take any more water out of the ground than what we can replace. In that scenario, though, where groundwater is unregulated, there wasn't the big incentive to grab flood flows from wet years. When we have a wet year in California, it is absolutely phenomenal how much water actually falls on this state. It's hundreds of millions of acre feet of water.
But we lose that, right?
Well, a lot of it can't be captured just because of where it is, but a lot of it could be. Okay, and we haven't really had an incentive to do it in the Central Valley until now. And with a realization that groundwater pumping is going to be restricted, suddenly there was an incentive to grab these flows that come at the wrong time of year. When they come in January and February, you're not growing a crop because the crop doesn't grow till late spring and into the summer. So that water is a nuisance to you. Okay, it could damage your crops, or so the incentive was to just try to minimize the flood damage and keep that water moving. But we had
because you can take out of the ground later,
Yes.
right? You can do it whenever you need it.
Exactly. Well, that entire paradigm has changed. Okay, because now all the farmers know that they're going to be regulated in their groundwater, and now these flood flows have become tremendous assets to take as much as we can of these flows, because they're surplus to anything the environment needs. They're surplus, and to put those flows in the ground. And during 2023, which was a very wet year, in really an ad hoc fashion, the Governor Newsom, to his credit, issued a couple of executive orders that facilitated taking advantage of this water, because we have while groundwater was not regulated at all, pumping it out of the ground was not regulated. Surface water has always been regulated, or regulated for well over 100 years. So the permission to take water out of a surface body is governed by the state. And so here you have surplus waters in a flood year, and the governor issued some executive orders that enabled particularly farmers to be able to take that flood water in that flood year. And what they did was they just ran it over their fields, and they percolated it down and soaked it down into the ground and started to replenish the aquifer. And what we were able to do in 2023 in an ad hoc way was, my estimation is close to 2 million acre feet of additional water was put into the ground in 2023 because of actions by farmers to take advantage of this water. And with some planning, which is what the San Joaquin Valley Water Blueprint is all about, is figuring out what infrastructure can we build, what connections can we build to take maximum advantage of these flood flows in these wet years. And that's going to be the management program for California going forward. We're going to need to maximize the amount of water we hang on to in these wet years to get us through the dry years. And the good news on the, kind of the rest of the story on these letters, and we don't have a final answer yet, is that it does seem like the state, the Secretary Crowfoot is the Secretary of Natural Resources. This week he was speaking at an event in Fresno, and he's clearly heard the issue, heard the concern about Fall X2, says they're working on modifying, and so there is at least hope that there'll be some adaptive management of this Fall X2, and this will have been at least somewhat successful in hanging on to some of this 350,000 acre foot. Secretary Crowfoot said, we realize we have to adaptively manage, and we have to recognize new science when it comes. So these were positive comments, and we hope they're followed through with action, because we really cannot afford to waste water in this state. We have to make sure that when we do dedicate water to the environment, that it does good, and that we protect the environment. We absolutely want to do that, and have an obligation to do that, both to the environment, to ourselves, and to posterity. But we have to be smart about how we do it. And, we built a wonderful, fantastic place that is California. It's got a lot of problems, but I was born in the Midwest, moved here when I was 15. I love this place despite all of its problems. And there's a lot of us here that came from somewhere else. And there is hope, and so we'll keep working at it.
Jeff Vanden Heuvel, Director of Regulatory and Economic Affairs at Milk Producers Council. It was great to have you on California Insider.
Well, it was an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Trump's remarks about raking the forest were mocked. They highlighted a real issue: the large scale of brush clearing. Experts have long recommended controlled burns and mechanical thinning to reduce fire risk. But red tape and funding delays left these warnings unheeded.
The mayor of Los Angeles is in Ghana as her city burns, but not to worry. Governor Gavin Newsom is on the scene. I'm sure he's wondering where it all went wrong.
I think we're all in the same path. We do have to do management, maintenance, and we'll be working also with environmental groups. They've really, I think everybody's seen the light. And I don't think we'll have this again to this extent. We're going to have to work quickly. We've got to take care of the floors, the floors of the forests, very important. You look at other countries where they do it differently, and it's a whole different story. I was with the president of Finland, and he said, we have a much different, we're a forest nation. He called it a forest nation. And they spend a lot of time on raking and cleaning and doing things, and they don't have any problem. And when it is, it's a very small problem. We have the management factor that I know Jerry's really been up on and very well. And Gavin is we're going to be looking at it together. And right now that seems to be a very big problem, and we're going to get that problem solved. In the Farm Bill, we're putting quite a bit of money, about $500 million in the Farm Bill for management and maintenance of the forests. We can't go through this every year. We go through this, and we're going to have safe forests.
Trump later tweeted the following: "The governor of California, Gavin Newsom, has done a terrible job of forest management. I told him from the first day we met that he must clean his forest floors regardless of what his bosses, the environmentalists, demand of him. Must also do burns and cut fire stoppers. Every year as the fires rage and California burns, it's the same thing, and then he comes to the federal government for money help. No more. Get your act together, Governor. You don't see close to the level of burn in other states." In 2024, Trump talked about this issue with Joe Rogan.
Your forests are dry as a bone.
Yeah.
Okay?
Dangerous.
Billions of dollars a year they spend on forest fires. And there's a case with the environment. They're not allowed to rake their forests because you're not allowed to touch it. When a tree falls down, after 18 months it becomes very dry. It's like, like real firewood. It's bad. When they fall,
right,
they're like, it's like lighting a match.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to clean. They call it maintain your forest. So I was with the head of Austria, He said, it's a shame. I see all those forest fires in California, and all they have to do is clean their forest, meaning rake it up, get rid of the leaves, get rid of, leaves that are sitting there for 5 years. And
we'll certainly get rid of the deadfall. I don't think you could rake the whole forest.
Well, I think
you can get rid of the deadfall, but raking all the leaves.
You could certainly get rid of the dead, okay?
Yeah, I think that's the real issue.
Environmentally, they don't want to do that. They said, it's got to be nature and all this stuff.
The guy that Los Angeles voted not to be mayor, who was defeated by the current mayor in Ghana, explained that the problems go even deeper.
Our first responders and our firefighters who are trying to battle this, there's no water in the Palisades. There's no water coming out of the fire hydrants. This is an absolute mismanagement by the city. It's not the firefighters' fault, but it's by the city. And I'm going to be very honest. We've got a mayor that's out of the country, and we've got a city that's burning, and there's no resources to put out fires. So if you look at your pictures, you don't see the firefighters there because there's nothing they can do. And it looks like we're in a third world country here. The brush up in these hills that are controlled by the city and the county, I would bet you that if they haven't been handled, mitigated, pruned, removed for probably 30 or 40 years. This was a disaster waiting to happen.
I have a pretty good guess as to what politicians will point their fingers to for these fires, though. Let's see what they said in 2020.
There is something so fundamental that also cannot be denied, and that is climate change. If you do not believe in science, I hope you believe in observed evidence. The debate is over around climate change. Just come to the state of California. Observe it with your own eyes. It's not an intellectual debate. It's not even debatable.
Climate change. And those who do not believe it do so at their own peril.
Mother Earth is angry. She's telling us, whether she's telling us with hurricanes on the Gulf Coast, fires in the West, whatever it is, that the climate crisis is real and has an impact.
The president has blamed the American West, and California in particular, for its own wildfires, saying that really they should sweep the forests. Literally, his idea is A, that climate change is a hoax. This is all a hoax. And B, the only places that get wildfires are places that deserve it, because they don't do a good enough job sweeping the ground in the forest, like with brooms.
Trump said, I see the forest floors is loading up with trees, it's loaded up with fuel. And he wasn't wrong. Many nations like Finland use similar strategies to manage forest fires effectively. So why hasn't California done the same? Why hasn't California learned? Why hasn't California took heed to these warnings?
Devastation comes to California.
All right, dude. Yeah, let's get out of here.
Residents flee for their lives.
There's nothing we can do now, bro.
We had everything, like the sentimental things. Like, my mom passed away. I had only a few things of hers left.
All the stuff that's here is replaceable. People are not. So having the family is the most important thing.
Homes are destroyed on an unprecedented scale.
People would normally be driving up and down here with surfboards on top of their cars, ready to enjoy a day at the beach. But right now, it just looks like some sort of apocalypse.
Firefighters struggle to hold back the flames.
All 29 fire departments in our county are not prepared for this type of widespread disaster.
But how did it happen? And why did the fires spread so quickly? Los Angeles is America's biggest city on the West Coast, and people here are used to wildfires. They've destroyed homes and businesses time and time again, but no one could have predicted the scale of the tragedy about to unfold when news first broke of one fire in one community.
You can see
They are dropping water. There you go. You can see it happen right there. And there are some hand crews on the ground. Would you mind talking to us for a second? Okay, what's your name?
Charles.
Charles, have you been evacuated from the area or not yet?
Not yet. And we have seen that before. So nothing new to us for the last 32 years that I've been here.
Within hours, things are getting serious. Residents can scarcely believe their eyes.
Fires were this close to the cars. People left their cars on Palisades Drive. Yeah. Burning up the hillside, the palm trees, everything's going.
What happened?
There's a lot of fire right there. That's why the people coming. We leave the car.
They said to get out of your car? Okay.
It's just so sad. And I feel for everyone that's lost property on fires. I've never been this close to it. Driving down the canyon was really very shattering.
Huge smoke plumes can be seen rising above the Pacific Palisades area of the city, and residents have been issued with an evacuation order.
Please take this wind emergency very seriously. As you heard from the speakers before me, this is something that is going to get worse throughout the night, so we all have to look out for each other.
The fire broke out around 10:30 in the morning in the Pacific Palisades neighborhood. It's an upscale area between Santa Monica and Malibu, home to many famous residents.
Sitting here and waiting to find out whether we're going to be evacuated or not it's like the time can't go by any slower. Yes, baby, come here, Baba. So instead, we decided to pass the time by putting together bags of clothes for our friends who have lost everything.
I have never seen flames from my house like this, ever. This is insanity. I hope everyone is staying safe tonight. Lots of love, lots of prayers.
Okay, we found everyone. We're just packing up the car, getting ready to go to the hotel. It's so big, it's so red. My thoughts and prayers are with everyone tonight. I'm really praying to stop soon.
Our community is beyond devastated. We are all pulling together. A lot of my friends have lost their home. I'm waiting to see if our home will be there. Right now, it's just a waiting game.
Among the buildings threatened, the world-famous Getty Museum with 44,000 artifacts.
I have the waves crashing in front of me here on PCH, and I have the flames behind me here on the hill after coming off the Temescal Canyon, where embers were being blown around, as you saw. The high school caught fire, homes burning on either side, and that fire over the last few hours just, I mean, look at the gust right now. It's literally pushing, it's blowing south, so it is just throwing these flames over these hills and through these canyons.
The headlines. 30,000 people have been ordered to evacuate their homes because of a wildfire which is tearing through wealthy suburbs of Los Angeles.
It's like a ghost town. Everybody's abandoned this place, as you can imagine, and the fires are still smouldering. People would normally be driving up and down here with surfboards on top of their cars, ready to enjoy a day at the beach. But right now, it just looks like some sort of apocalypse.
There's not enough structure protection in here to really try and save all of these homes. It's really going to be a struggle. This is heartbreaking. I feel for these people, and it's just sad to watch all these homes go up.
This was just a little antique shop, pizza place,
These places have been here forever, ever since I've been alive.
I really thought my shop was gone. It's still here right now. I don't know if it'll make it or not.
There's a lot of people who don't have insurance or fire insurance. I know that's difficult in this area, especially if you're in the fire zone, and I feel horrible for them.
I tell you, I've been here 47 years. I grew up on this block. I saw the other altitude fires, and it was nothing like this. Nothing like this.
My son left the house before us on foot. He doesn't have a cell phone or anything like that, so I'm searching for him now. I'm looking for him.
We got a phone call from a neighbor saying that our house was on fire, and we knew that there were no fire trucks in the area, so we thought we would come up and see if we could get in the area.
Well, I keep going from not crying to now starting to cry again, because I know a lot of these people and they've lost everything. So it's pretty surreal to see all this.
5 minutes ago, I was sitting in the car by myself, and tears just came over my face. So,
and
my entire history is in the house.
We did take all of our family pictures and a few valuable paintings out last night, so, you know, all the stuff that's here is replaceable. People are not, so.
Very lucky.
So having the family is the most important thing.
I'm going to break down again. That's what I feel. It's my whole life.
Everything was in there.
So
lost everything.
You shape up. You're supposed to be a support. Anyway, I'm okay. I'll be okay. I'm tough, and we'll start over. Even though I'm 91 years old, I'll start over again.
The difference with this is that we've had these huge 50 to 80 mile an hour winds, and it's still windy. And so it didn't matter where the fire started yesterday, but the embers flew everywhere.
Let's go back to Emma Vardy now. And Emma, this area is no stranger to wildfires, but nothing could have prepared them for this.
What makes this so different is that there are so many fires burning at once, and they're burning so close to residential areas. Now, emergency crews on the ground have admitted they just don't have enough people to deal with this developing situation, and some of those fires are still growing in size. The hillsides are still burning behind us, and every time the winds blow, there's a gust of wind. We're just seeing flames up on the hillside there burst back into life. A reminder of how unpredictable this fire is and how much the winds have been driving it and making life so difficult. We have also been hearing about some serious injuries to residents who did not evacuate their homes, choosing to stay behind for various reasons to try and protect their homes, or simply leaving it too late. So emergency services are continuing to warn people to take evacuation orders very seriously, because this is a day like Los Angeles has not seen before, and it's not even close to being over yet.
This is CBS News on the Hour.
The Southern California wildfires are not only some of the most destructive in state history, they've turned deadly. At least 5 lives now reported lost.
Overnight, destruction continued. 15,000 buildings had been burned, and 100,000 people had been forced from their homes. Firefighters were overwhelmed, and there were increasing reports of looting.
So if I very quickly take my mask off, the air is absolutely thick with smoke. The fire crews here tell us they have a shortage of water, and in many instances they're having to stand and watch these properties burn. It is a losing battle.
I never thought it would come through here.
David was hoping his home might have survived, but the whole neighborhood has gone. And with it, his house too.
I would have thought I'd be seeing more planes flying over with water. I mean, there appears to be just 2. I mean, in California, are there not like 20 or 30 of them that they could have got you already? I would have thought the firemen would like take a stand on a certain area. Maybe they did, and I'm just not seeing it, but...
From Pacific Palisades, the fire spread across more than 17,000 acres, making it one of the biggest natural disasters in the history of Los Angeles. 5 separate fires were now burning. The Palisades and Hearst fires were almost completely uncontained.
We've just been evacuated. We've just been evacuated from this Good Samaritan's car. You got it, Dad.
Moving out vulnerable residents was proving far from easy.
There's a fire right outside our car. We got it. No, not that way, Dad.
My father-in-law has Parkinson's. He can barely move. This was a heroic effort on his part.
It's very wobbly. Here, let me try to get you home.
Which way do I go?
This way, Dad, to the sidewalk.
I went outside. I saw smoke and fire near my father-in-law's house and realized we need to go. The problem is we didn't have a car. I ran up and down the street where he was, Glen Haven, finally found a neighbor who was willing to swing by and pick us up. Most people had already gone at that point. And at that point, I grabbed his medicine. That's the only thing I could think to grab.
Turn around, Dad. We got this.
And at that point, we jumped in his car. This guy, Jeff, neighbor we'd never met before, but, you know, salt of the earth, saved our lives. As we're driving down, there's fires on both sides of the car. We're driving, we're suddenly seeing fires. You could feel the heat. And then the fires were getting closer and closer. And at that point, just being stuck there, surrounded by fire, the policemen started running up the street. Get out of the car, get out of the car.
The authorities in Los Angeles have issued a powerful warning against looting and other criminal activity in areas abandoned by people fleeing wildfires. 10 people are known to have died, but officials expect this number to rise.
On day 4 of the disaster, tens of thousands of acres have been destroyed. Residents are asking why help wasn't coming more quickly.
It's just not enough crews, you know, enough people. I think they're undermanned. I think that budgets have been cut.
We actually came to say thank you to our house for being good to us. And we were good to it. So.
Well, as thousands of firefighters continue that battle to get this crisis under control, this is what it leaves in its wake. The suburb of Altadena sits at the foot of a mountain range over which the unusually strong winds for this time of year, the Santa Ana winds they call them, poured in on Tuesday night. And it's that really lies at the heart of this disaster.
The Santa Ana winds have had 2 effects. Once you get the fire going, well, it's already started. But the Santa Ana winds add in extra dry air. That sucks out all the moisture that's already there in the plants, so it dries them out quicker, so it's actually adding more fuel, and then the speed helps the spread. If you think you can have wind speeds, basically hurricane force wind speeds blowing, with a fire in place, it will push that flame, that boundary of the fire, over huge areas in such a short space of time. And that is what we've seen in LA over the last few days.
There's much debate about the emergency response. Were the authorities prepared for such a calamity? But there's also another question people are asking. Is the changing climate partly to blame for all the devastation?
So what the climate scientists say is that the temperature is getting hotter. That's making things drier. You've got extended heat waves, which draw moisture out of the soil and out of the vegetation. So you've got more dry vegetation. So when a fire starts, there's more fuel to keep that fire going, and it's likely to burn longer and burn a larger area. The National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration did a paper looking at the relationship between temperature increase and wildfires. They found that climate change had caused an almost 200% increase, so almost doubled the area burnt by wildfires since the 1970s. People are saying now $150 billion, the most expensive fire in US history and presumably in world history. So as a climate journalist, you look at this and you say, this is one of those kind of key events in the history of the whole planet's understanding of the potential impacts of climate change.
We're just letting everybody know where we're at. We're taking donations, any types. There's anything from kids supplies, pet supplies, food, anything you could think of that we could help you with. There was a lady here offering housing for people that have lost homes. We're just trying to help in any way possible in a hard time like this.
I came here because I'm in need. I lost my house, my childhood home. It's just devastating. This is crazy. City I grew up in is gone.
We wanted to see if we could get water because that's the mostly thing that we're worried about, the water. You know, we need water.
Prince Harry and his wife Meghan have been meeting some of the first responders and victims of the fires at a World Central Kitchen site where food is being distributed. The couple spoke and, as you see, hugged some of the people who'd been affected by the Eaton fire. It's believed that they'd already contributed clothing, children's items and other essential supplies.
The Governor of California has called for an independent investigation into whether water shortages hindered efforts to control the wildfires that have devastated parts of Los Angeles. Firefighters are still trying to contain the blazes.
Beautiful job.
By Saturday, 6 fires were burning. Poor air quality caused by billowing ash and smoke prompted the authorities to declare a local health emergency. The number of dead climbed to 11.
Determining the cause of these fires is critical, and to that end, Mayor Bass, Chief Crowley, and I are announcing, in conjunction with our partner agencies, the creation of the Los Angeles Regional Wildfire Investigative Task Force. This task force is made up of local, state, and federal partners designed to investigate the cause of these fires and to see if there's any connection between them.
At least 16 people have died since Tuesday and about a dozen others are missing. 4 large fires are still burning, and officials say that the threat will remain high until Wednesday because of strong winds.
To all LA County residents, please be assured that we will continue to battle these wildfires from the air and on the ground until they are fully contained. We stand alongside all of you as we begin repopulation of evacuated areas, establishment of disaster recovery centers, and the rebuilding of your homes, your communities, and your lives.
Watching the fires develop, sitting kind of awestruck, seeing this kind of vision of apocalypse in one of the greatest cities on earth burning. It was a cataclysmic fire.
California will be probably asking itself big questions. You can't stop or prevent wildfires as such, especially in the climate that California has. It will have to look into various ways to manage the potential and the ways they tackle the fires in the future, especially as it's becoming a growing threat on every month of the year and over wider areas.
The imagery of LA has become black and white. You know, it's ash and charred, burnt material. This sort of ghostly landscape that's emerged from a place we're all familiar with because we've all seen the movies. We know what LA looks like. We know the palm trees and the green grass. And now you see this sort of really degraded, frankly terrifying kind of shattered landscape.
The people here will never forget these fires that ushered in the new year. And the scale of the tragedy, it's really difficult to overstate. Yes, much of the physical damage to homes and businesses, that can be put right, but the lives of some have been changed forever, with many people wondering, because the fire season is getting longer and longer, how are they going to cope next time?
They gave them warnings, y'all. They told them that if they kept on issuing these payouts, if it get out of control, they wouldn't be able to be sustainable in business.
It was not a shock. It just makes it difficult for a lot of people.
After State Farm announced at the end of May that it would not offer new property insurance in the state of California, Allstate is now following suit. Neither company is accepting new applications for property or casualty insurance in the state due to the increased risk of wildfires. State Farm specifically cited, quote, rapidly growing catastrophe exposure and historic construction costs. The change will not impact existing policyholders, but it's a huge hit to the nation's most populous state. State Farm and Allstate make up its first and fourth largest property insurance providers, respectively.
If you can't insure your home, you can't sell it, number one, so that when people go to get insurance, the premiums are so high that it makes it not affordable. And so we've seen people not be able to sell their homes. You can't get a loan against the home. And so that has been very devastating to folks.
Senator Daly believes more insurers could follow Allstate and State Farm because of California's insurance cap, which prevents insurance companies from raising their insurance rates. According to the California Department of Insurance, this isn't the first time this has happened. They released a statement saying in part, quote, historically, the Department of Insurance has seen companies pause and then restart writing policies as conditions change. More than 115 insurance companies currently offer California homeowners insurance. Here in the Rogue Valley, Joe Hubbard with Protectors Insurance says premiums are already increasing because of past wildfires.
After the Alameda fire, we saw the values of homes going up because of inflation. We saw, and people were seeing premium increases just because the value was going up.
Hubbard estimates there have already been around 10 companies that have gotten out of the property insurance business here in Oregon. For prospective homeowners, he says it's now vital to check in with insurance before making that big purchase.
Before you buy a home, I would definitely check with an insurance agent to see what that homeowners would cost. In the past, that was kind of a second issue, but now I say before you sign any deals, make sure you can get a policy.
2023, major providers like State Farm and Allstate stopped offering new policies in the state, leaving millions of homeowners scrambling. They were reducing their risk management. They could no longer serve California with the same coverage they've been serving because they seen the data. They seen what was going to happen. This was inevitable. Without actions to reduce risk, like clearing the brush and improving water storage, the insurance industry is retreating from California.
Thank you, Agent State Farm.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Cut. Hey, Arnold, I'm hearing neighbor. It's neighbor.
That's what I said. Neighbor.
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 Hey, let's go again.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Cut.
Now what?
Neighbor.
Yeah, neighbor. Just like it's written on the paper. Neighbor! That was the sheep. And you know it. Neighbor.
Still no.
Neighbor.
Neighbor.
Bar.
Bar.
Bar! This lady's in labor!
Cut! Arnold, got a bit of a script change. You'll love this.
Thank you, Agent State Farm.
Like a good
neighbor, State Farm is there.
You are a backstabber.
I am a backstabber.
It was not a shock. It just makes it difficult for a lot of people.
After State Farm announced at the end of May that it would not offer new property insurance in the state of California, Allstate is now following suit. Neither company is accepting new applications for property or casualty insurance in the state due to the increased risk of wildfires. State Farm specifically cited, quote, rapidly growing catastrophe exposure and historic construction costs. The change will not impact existing policyholders, but it's a huge hit to the nation's most populous state. State Farm and Allstate make up its first and fourth largest property insurance providers, respectively.
If you can't insure your home, you can't sell it, number one, so that when people go to get insurance, the premiums are so high that it makes it not affordable. And so we've seen people not be able to sell their homes. You can't get a loan against the home. And so that has been very devastating to folks.
Senator Daly believes more insurers could follow Allstate and State Farm because of California's insurance cap, which prevents insurance companies from raising their insurance rates. According to the California Department of Insurance, this isn't the first time this has happened. They released a statement saying in part, quote, "Historically, the Department of Insurance has seen companies pause and then restart writing policies as conditions change. More than 115 insurance companies currently offer California homeowners insurance." Here in the Rogue Valley, Joe Hubbard with Protectors Insurance says premiums are already increasing because of past wildfires.
After the Alameda fire, we saw, the values of homes going up because of inflation. We saw, and people were seeing premium increases just because the value was going up.
Hubbard estimates there have already been around 10 companies that have gotten out of the property insurance business here in Oregon. For prospective homeowners, he says it's now vital to check in with insurance before making that big purchase.
Before you buy a home, I would definitely check with an insurance agent to see what that homeowners would cost. In the past, that was kind of a second issue, but now I say before you sign any deals, make sure you can get a policy.
Who's to blame for this crisis? Is it California leadership for failing to act on these warnings, the insurance companies for retreating, or the public for resisting fire safety measures? Trump warnings may have not been politically charged, but they were rooted in long-standing concerns echoed by experts. As California continues to face these challenges, it's clear that the consequences of not doing anything are catching up to everyone.
All the loss and destruction, a distraught mother whose daughter's school burned down encountered Governor Newsom during a visit to the Palisades.
And it was caught on tape, and this video aired on Sky News.
You got a second? Governor, I live here, Governor. That was my daughter's school, Governor. Please tell me what you're going to do. I'm not going to hurt him, I promise.
I'm literally talking to the president right now to specifically answer the question of what we can do for you and your daughter.
Can I hear it? Can I hear your call? Because I don't believe it.
I'm sorry. There's literally, I've tried 5 times. That's why I'm walking around to make the call.
Why is the president not taking your call?
Because it's not going through. So
Why?
I have to get cell service.
So let's get it. Let's get it. I want to be here when you call the president.
I appreciate it. I'm doing that right now. And it's to immediately get reimbursements, individual assistance, and to help you. I'm devastated for you. I'm so sorry, especially for your daughter. I have 4 kids losing the school.
Everyone who went to school there, they lost their homes. They lost 2 homes because they were living in one and building another. Governor, please tell me, what are you going to do with the president right now?
We're getting the resources to help rebuild.
Why was there no water in the hydrants, Governor?
That's all literally.
Is it going to be different next time?
It has to be. Has to be. Of course.
What are you going to do?
I'm doing
To
everything
fill the
I can.
hydrants. I would fill them up personally, you know that.
I literally.
I would fill up the hydrants myself.
I understand.
But would you do that?
I would do whatever I can.
But you're not. I see do you know there's water dripping over there, Governor? There's water coming out there. You can use it.
I appreciate it. I'm going to make the call to address everything I can right now, including making sure people
I'd
are
like
safe.
to make sure you do. Can I have an opportunity to at least tell people you're doing what you're saying you're doing? Could somebody have a contact? Can I have your contact information?
Right there.
The governor's office says they have since spoken with that mother in order to connect her with recovery services and local support.
What do you think? Could this have been prevented? What's your solution? Comment below.